Hi, everyone. We're back in the shack. Welcome to the shack. We
have a
do.
story.
We always have stories, lots of stories. My name's Trina, and this is
Steph.
my daughter. And we're doing a series at the moment on fairy tales, and we're looking at the backstory. We're looking at where they originally came from, as well as reminding us about the more modern day stories that are told now.
Yeah, a lot of the things that we've been looking through are stories that are very, very well known to us now in a certain way, and how they've changed over time. So how those stories, where they started from, and how they have been kind of sanitized for our consumption as time's gone on, which has been really interesting because some of them are horrific.
Very scary. Yeah, quite horrific, some of them, and surprising. New stuff that some of the stuff I had no idea. So
Hansel and Gretel was the one for me.
yeah.
That one was just like, I don't think I fully appreciated the time that it was written
Mm,
and what was going on in the world at that
yeah.
point. So I
Yeah.
think that one for me was a big eye opener.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, definitely. So, welcome to the shack, as I said. But have you got your brew? Because, as usual, we always ask you to bring your brew, your favourite brew, in actual fact, and pull up a seat. So, we're hoping that you have a nice, comfy seat, or you're happily walking the dog, or driving the car, or and just have us in your ear as a little bit of company.
We
For
sometimes make good company.
Yeah, I think we make pretty good company. We're friendly, and very
Talking
welcoming.
bollocks.
Yeah, we quite often talk bollocks.
Oh dear.
Dear, as well as the
Well,
theme that we're doing. Go.
sorry.
She has a cough.
I have a
And
really annoying. The stupid thing is, I didn't have a cough. I didn't have a cough until I randomly choked on nothing earlier this morning, and now I can't seem to get rid of this kind of that's in the back of my throat. There's no other description for that. I'm sorry. That's just the
no.
way it is.
And I just will not be able to edit all of these coughs out.
No, so if you hear me coughing, I'm really, really sorry. I'm going to try and limit it as much as I can. I do have a drink, which I'm going to get in a second because it's over there. But I do have a drink, and I will be trying to kind of limit how much I'm coughing, but I will do my best. Okay. But today
I have coffee, as usual.
I
Most
have
of the time
tea
I have
in my warm cup, and then I have
no
juice.
juice. Some
Juice.
juice.
I have cassis.
Oh, nice.
A little bit of cassis.
Sounds like you
And
need
yet I still can't sorry.
a bit of medical stuff for your throat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this
Something
stuff's so sweet
medicinal.
that I think it will probably do the job. But
Yeah. No,
um,
you need some of those drinks that you were having before Christmas in your
yeah,
little.
yeah,
You need one of them.
yeah,
A nice apricot vodka or something, wasn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One of those bit of whiskey,
Yeah.
Yeah, my advent calendar was amazing this year. And again, if you haven't seen those, you head over to the TikTok channel because they're all on there. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the story of Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes.
Do you know it?
It's not a story that I am extremely familiar with.
It wasn't one I was familiar with either.
No, I have a rough idea about the story, and some of that stems from the television program.
Oh, right.
Was it on Netflix at one time?
I don't know.
I
There
got
was been a lot on YouTube about this story because it's a good one.
Yeah, there was a fantasy story about a woman who was born in like Storyland world or something. And she left and went somewhere else, and then she came back. And everybody in the place is like They look like real people, ordinary American small townsfolk, if you like. There's a like a mayor and a policeman and a builder and a shopkeeper and all that sort of thing. But it's not until you start finding out more about them that you find out that they're actually all characters from storybooks.
Oh, I see.
And they're the real characters from the storybooks. And one of them is Rumpelstiltskin.
I remember us talking about redcaps,
Yes.
and we had a story in there that I mentioned had been likened to potentially Rumpelstiltskin being a form of redcap. So it was just an interesting take, but that was quite some time ago that we were talking about that. So yes, in this this tale's been around for so long that it can be found in the majority of cultures, and not just across the world, but also throughout time. Some say as far back as the days of the pharaohs in ancient Egypt. So throughout time, across the world, in all nations, just wherever or whenever you encounter these tales, they often incorporate the morals of the times. And this is, again, how these stories change throughout time, because the morals of the time kind of guide the story a little bit. But one common theme has permeated every single version, and that is the importance of a name. And this is quite poignant. In all of our societies throughout all of history, naming things has been integral to our sense of place in the universe. Our families, our ancestors are identified by their name. And thus, so too are their deeds. The things we create and use are given names, and we often all understand what that thing does simply by knowing its name. I will say that when you're learning French and you don't know the name for something, and you have to suddenly describe something by what it does, although on one occasion I was absolutely right, because I needed a scouring pad, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was, and so I described it as a scratcher, the thing that scratches when you wash the dishes, the thing that scratches, and it's un gratte.
Yeah.
And that was essentially, that is a slang term for a scouring pad, is un gratte.
Yeah. A
There you
grater.
go. Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did find that quite funny, because it was like, well, I didn't actually know the name for that, but it is just called what it does.
That's all right. I spoke to my neighbour once and I was explaining to him that we were cutting the grass and I couldn't remember the name for a lawnmower. And so I just went, was it couper le gazon? Yeah. Like this.
Or l'herbe, grass.
Yeah, or l'herbe. Yeah, he understood what I meant and he told me it was une tondeuse.
Tondeuse.
Yeah.
Tondeuse.
Tondeuse. So I learned that, but just by chatting to my neighbour and making stupid noises.
Brilliant. And why not? We learn more when we improvise. It's amazing how much you learn from just improvisation. We have not made a mistake. We are just improvising. It's fine. Okay, so many things that humans have given names to are often taken for granted. How would you describe a summer sky to someone if not for the fact that we gave it the reflection of the wavelengths of light, like the name blue? Yeah, that we're describing the sky as blue. There's obviously lots of other phrases that we can use. Names hold power, and that's the focus of the story. For when you know something's name, you gain power over it. It's also a very interesting thing about understanding certain psychological terms. When, if somebody has, for instance, been a victim of abuse, being able to put a name to it is so much more comfortable.
Yes.
When you know that you're not the only one that experienced that, somebody else did and they called it this. The clarity that gives you.
Yeah. Well, I had a little something there, which was Hermione's little quote in Harry Potter. I have to bring up this.
It's a good one.
where she's talking about Voldemort, where they're not allowed to say his name. And she says, fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself.
Yeah.
The
Fear
fear
of a
of the thing
name
itself.
only increases fear of the thing itself.
Yeah. But
That's very true.
in the final book, Voldemort places a charm on his name so that if it's said, then the person saying it is exposed and found, so that he knows where to get you.
Yeah, he
So
puts a
that's,
jinx on it or something, doesn't he?
yeah, he put some well, they called it a charm, but it was almost like a finding beacon.
Yeah, like a
That,
location
like a
thing.
location beacon. Yeah, it was like setting off your phone's location, and all of a sudden they knew that you'd said his name and they came after you. So that was quite a powerful thing in that sense. But when I used to work with children a lot, and children couldn't always tell me how they were feeling or what the word was. They didn't always know the vocabulary. And we would give it colours and we would give it shapes and
Textures and yeah.
textures and the heaviness or lightness of a feeling and how big it was and how small it was. And then they were able then to draw pictures of what this feeling meant to them. Where was it in their body? And then you could then relay that to their teacher or their parents so that they would understand. So sometimes they just used to be able to touch a chart and it wasn't just faces, a
Yeah.
happy face or a sad face or something in
It was
between.
personal to them.
It was much more personal to them. And sometimes a green colour to them would be a calm colour. Sometimes red wasn't always danger or anger. It sometimes for some children was the colour that helped calm them. And so everything was very personal. That it was interesting that they weren't able to give something a name. And you couldn't always name it for them because then it wouldn't be personal to them. So it was a lovely way of understanding.
It's
And I've
still
done it.
giving it identity, isn't it?
It's
Without
giving it an identity and then they can
yeah.
give it a name if they want to.
Mm.
But they can still describe it to me or they
Yeah.
could draw a picture and then they can point to it and say, that's how I'm feeling today.
I've just got that scene in Over the Hedge where they don't know what it is. And they go, oh, let's call it Steve.
Yeah.
And the other character that's like, oh, I'm much less afraid of Steve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Names are important, folks.
Yeah.
So we're going to just take ourselves to Egypt for a minute, okay? Because in an early tale in Egyptian mythology, Isis deceives Ra. These are gods, by the way. Isis deceives Ra into revealing his secret name in order to cure him from a fatal snake bite. By obtaining Ra's true name, Isis gains power over him, highlighting the fact that the ancient Egyptians believed that knowing someone's name granted control and dominion over that individual, underscoring the significance of names and their inherent power at that time. So although we don't necessarily have that kind of thing in sort of open society, knowing someone's name doesn't necessarily give you power over them. But for this tale, it's kind of important. The tale we know was popularized by the Brothers Grimm. Of course it was.
Of course.
And tells the story of boastfulness and ruthless greed, desperation and secrets. And the most popular version goes a little like this. In order to appear superior, a miller brags to the king and people of his kingdom by claiming his daughter can spin straw into gold. Likely?
We wish.
We wish. The king calls for the girl, locks her up in a tower room filled with straw and a spinning wheel, and demands that she spin the straw into gold by morning, or he will have her killed. Nice chap. There's a guy you want to party with. When she can't speak either. When she has given up all hope, a little imp-like man appears in the room and spins the straw into gold in return for her necklace of glass beads. The next morning, the king takes the girl to a larger room filled with straw to repeat the feat. And the imp, once again, spins in return for the girl's glass ring. On the third day, the girl is taken into an even larger room filled with straw and told by the king that she can spin, if she can spin all of this straw into gold, he will marry her. Sounds like a right bloody thing, doesn't it? Oh yeah, great. That's the reward. Cheers. Thanks very much. I've lost my necklace, my rings now. Now I freedom. Wonderful. But if she cannot, she will be executed. So it's lose-lose, really.
Yeah, it is really.
While she is sobbing alone in the room, I can't imagine she'd really do anything else, the little imp appears again and promises that he can spin the straw into gold for her. But the girl tells him she has nothing left with which to pay. The strange creature suggests she pay him with her first child. Because it's always the firstborn, isn't it? She reluctantly agrees. And he sets about spinning the straw into gold. The king keeps his promise to marry the miller's daughter. But when their first child is born, the imp returns to claim his payment. She offers him all the wealth that she has to keep the child. But the imp has no interest in her riches. He finally agrees to give up his claim to the child if she can guess his name within 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
The queen's many guesses fail, but before the final night she wanders into the woods, searches for him, and comes across his remote mountain cottage and watches, unseen, as he hops about his fire and sings. He reveals his name in his song's lyrics. Tonight, tonight, my plans I make. Tomorrow, tomorrow, the baby I take. The queen will never win the game, for Rumpelstiltskin is my name. When the imp comes to the queen on the third day, after first feigning ignorance, she reveals his name, Rumpelstiltskin, and he loses his temper at the loss of their bargain. Now, obviously, that's a slightly less descriptive story than some of them are. Variations vary about whether he accuses the devil or witches of having revealed his name. So this is where the witches come in. I thought this one was going to talk about the witches, but it didn't. But apparently, in one of the versions, there's witches, and they reveal the name. In 1812 edition of the Brothers Grimm tales, Rumpelstiltskin then ran away angrily and never came back. The ending was revised in 1857 to more gruesome style ending, wherein Rumpelstiltskin, in his rage, drove his right foot so far into the ground that it sank up to his waist. Then, in a passion, he seized the left foot with both hands and tore himself in two.
Like you do.
As you do. Other versions have Rumpelstiltskin driving his right foot so far into the ground that he creates a chasm and falls into it, never to be seen again. In the oral version, originally collected by the Brothers Grimm, Rumpelstiltskin flies out of a window on a cooking ladle. I mean,
Wow.
where do you get that from? Is that just like...
Perhaps the broom wasn't available.
Oh, there, another kitchen utensil, it'll be fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, as long as it's got a long handle, we'll be fine.
Yeah, it's fine. You can sit in the bowl of the Maybe it's a really big cooking ladle. Some scholars think that the origins of this tale may refer to the fear of those most feared of magical humans, blacksmiths. And this is actually quite interesting. Noblemen and kings could become hugely wealthy by the skills of men who could throw plain seeming rocks into a fire and have gold run miraculously from within the fiery depths. By the same token, these same men could make weapons of war to help keep or take such a fortune. Before the more enlightened ages, people did not understand how such things were achieved and often feared that the smiths that made dark pacts with demons, who told them the secret names of the elements of the earth in return for their humanity. So they were not human. They were somehow less human and more demonic or something, because they traded something in for the knowledge that they had. Those who did not know the sciences behind such arts could well have feared that such men could hold power over them, and that they would become slaves to these dark powers forever if they were unable to gain power over them first. That's a really difficult word to say. I'm sure you're looking at the same word I am. I think it's Feverux. In Feverux Saga of Bern, Wayland the Smith, husband of one of the Valkyries, is abducted in the night by King Naiad's men, who order him hamstrung and kept on an island.
Mm.
He steals Wayland's belongings, giving his wedding ring to his own daughter. He then forces Wayland to forge items for him and his family. Again, you can start to see the connections that are being made here. In revenge, Wayland kills the king's son when they secretly visit him. He forges goblets. Oh, sorry, he calls it the king's sons, plural.
Yes. Yeah.
He forges goblets from their skulls, jewels from their eyes, and a brooch from their teeth, all of which he gives to the king and his family. When the king's daughter visits Wayland in order to get the ring repaired, Wayland seduces her and gets her pregnant. He forges for himself a magical cloak that allows him to fly, and he flies to the king's hall, where he reveals all that he has done to the king and his family before flying away without the range of the out of the range of the enraged king's archers. I'm doing very well with my reading today.
It's fine. Can I just say, it made me smile when I saw the name Wayland.
Why?
Because many years ago, when my brother was born, now we've all got unusual names, right? My name is Petrina. My sister is called Verena, and that was
Not
made up.
Verena.
Not Verena, Verena. My brother, when he was born, was going to be called Wayland.
Oh, yes. I remember them talking about this.
But my dad came in about a day after he was born, after they decided they were going to call him Wayland. And he came in and said to my mum, "You cannot call him Wayland." And she was like, "Why? Why? What's the problem?" He said, "Because our surname is Bailey, and they will call him Whaley Bailey."
Bailey. Yeah. Yeah, he's probably not wrong.
Yeah. So he got called Bradley instead.
It works. It works.
Yeah.
He
And
suits it.
he still got called Bill Bailey.
Of course.
It was, yeah. It's
I
a
mean,
well-known name that is put with Bailey. It comes from a long time ago. My dad was called Bill Bailey. Everyone called him Bill. His name was Harold.
I mean, given the fact that we do have the legendary Bill Bailey, which should not be ignored here, you
Yeah.
know, a comedian and musician of epic proportions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't, you can't have a Bailey and not have a Bill. I mean,
Yeah. But it was a very well-known anyone that was called Bailey ended up being called Bill back then. So, yeah. But he's now Brad Bailey or
yeah,
Eeyore.
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 I always knew him as Eeyore.
Oh, we won't go into details now. Maybe if you come to the shack after dark, might be
We'll talk
something
a bit
we'll
more
talk about.
about it. Anyway, we're going back to the Smiths, not the Smiths family, but
Not
the
my
Smiths.
Smiths.
Not
'cause
your
that's the-
Smiths. That's the other one.
That's the other name, yeah.
Yeah, not them, but the probably they probably were Smiths way back, because that's where it all kind of comes from, isn't it? But anyway,
Yeah.
we're going back to the
No, they weren't.
the Smiths.
No, they
Were
had
they
a
not?
different no. Had a different name and left a house because I think they owed rent and all sorts of other things.
That sounds
And
about right.
they did a midnight flit and they changed their name to Smith. Yeah. So great fun trying to find my
family history. Yeah, what a
Yeah.
nightmare. Get hit Smith and that's it. End of the road.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Great.
to these Smiths, it's not difficult to see how these feared Smiths, not your Smiths, these
Not
Smiths,
our Smith, no.
could have been the original antagonists for the tale. Nor is it hard to see how this could have changed over many retellings to feature. To the. I can't even.
Do you want me to read? Shall I read? You're having a hard time, aren't you?
I really am. I
cannot speak.
be struggling today. Oh my life. It's not hard to see how it could have changed over the many retellings to the figure of some form of creature or devil. There we go. See, it's not difficult. It's not complicated.
Ta-da!
It wasn't a difficult sentence. It didn't have difficult words. But for some reason, I just could not get that out of my mouth. My life. By the same token, as time wears on, we see other characters become born into the story as they began to exist in society. So a miller whose daughter becomes the unfortunate focus of the king's attention. As a minor official of a town and part of the ambitious merchant class, he would have been an ideal character to represent those who could gain great wealth or great misfortune at the whims of the ruling classes. Dependent on their own actions, the boastful miller in the tale hopes to win favour by impressing his betters. I genuinely hate that whole thing of like, I'm better than you. Well, I'm just in a different class to you. Seriously, I have no time for that shit.
Me neither.
He would have just been told where to go. So it can be said that as the Industrial Revolution began to gain ground and spinning was mechanized, I can't say that word at all, mechanized, rather than performed by individual women, that the figure of Rumpelstiltskin ceases to be that of the devilish figure and more of an, how do you say that? Oh, this is ridiculous. I need to do this again.
I'm not sure where we are. Where are we?
We're at the top of page 4. I think it's allegorical. I should have changed that in the beginning when I did. I've been through this to change bits like this so that I can actually make sense of it. Dyslexia, seriously, absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so let's go back. You might have to just take a bit more time editing this one. I'm sorry.
I've got nothing else to do.
It's allegorical figure. Here we go then. It can be said that as the Industrial Revolution began to gain ground and spinning was mechanized rather than performed by individual women, that the figure of Rumpelstiltskin ceases to be that of the devilish figure and more an allegorical figure representing the mills, places that could produce so much it would be akin to spinning gold from straw. but demanding such a high price from its workers that it was seen as too much. The king, now the mill owners, greedy for more and more wealth and uncaring as to the fates of those who provided the toil.
Yeah.
So also, as time wore on and more modern Christian values came to the fore, it became important that the devilish figure not be too powerful, too imposing, or too difficult to overcome. It may be that this is the reason that the figure of Rumpelstiltskin becomes that of a more comic, ugly, and twisted man figure, rather than something as potent as a blacksmith.
Right.
It may also be for this reason that the ending of the tale changed considerably in the later iterations, going from Rumpelstiltskin simply leaving in defeat to that of him literally destroying himself in a spectacle designed to broadcast the lesson of the ultimate triumph of good over evil. It's here that we can include a version of this tale from Cornwall designed as a warning against pride and laziness, called Duffy and the Devil Terrytop, which used to be told as a play at Christmas time. And I have to admit, it's just fabulous. But we might have to say some of these lines with a little bit of an accent. So all sort of southwest, we might go a bit mummerset here, okay?
Oh, right.
We may have to go a little bit mummerset because I'm not sure my Cornish is quite up to scratch. It's been a while. So, it was cider making time. Squire Lovell of Trove, or more correctly, Trewove, rode up to Buryan Church town to procure help. Boys and maidens were in request, some to gather the apples from the trees, others to carry them to the cider mill. Passing along the villages as hastily as the dignity of the squire would allow him, his attention was drawn to a great noise, scolding in a shrill, terrible voice and crying, proceeding from Janie, just Chegwin. Sorry, it's Chygwins. So it's Chegwin's door. We pretty much just know her as Janie after this. So the squire rode up to the cottage and he saw an old woman beating her stepdaughter Duffy about the head with the skirt of her swing-tailed gown. My life. In which she had been carrying out the ashes. She made such a dust that the squire was nearly choked and almost blinded with the wood ash. "What cheer, Janie?" cries the squire. "What the to-do with you and Duffy?" What's the to-do?
What's the
Here.
And then Janie would shout, "Oh, lazy hussy!"
The lazy hussy!
All her time curtsying and curranting with the boys, she will never stay in the boil. She will never stay in to boil the porridge, knit the stockings, or spin the yarn.
To which Duffy explains, "Don't believe her, Your Honour. My knitting and spinning is the best in the parish." The war of tongues continued for some time, the old squire looking calmly on and resolving in his mind to take Duffy home with him to Trove, her appearance evidently pleasing him greatly. Squire Lovell left the old and young woman to do their best and went round the village to complete his hiring. When he returned, peace had been declared between them. But when Lovell expressed his desire to take Duffy home to his house to help the housekeeper to do the spinning, "Pretty spinner is I," shouted old Janie at the top of her voice. "Try me, Your Honour," said Duffy, curtsying very low, My yarns are the best in the parish. We'll soon try that, said the squire. Janey will be glad to get quits of thee, I see, and thou'lt be nothing loath to leave her. So jump up behind me, Duffy. There you go. No sooner said than done. The maid Duffy, without ceremony, mounted behind the squire on the horse, and they jogged silently down to Trove. Squire Lovell's old housekeeper was almost blind. One eye had been put out by the angry old wizard. Though sympathy, she was, and through, through sympathy, she was rapidly losing the power of seeing with the other. This old dame was consequently very glad for some help in spinning and knitting. The introduction over, the housekeeper takes Duffy up into the garret where the wool was kept and where the spinning was done in the summer, and requests her to commence her work.
Do you want me to read some?
Yeah, by all means. I am struggling, I got to admit.
The truth must be told. Duffy was an idle slut. She could neither knit nor spin. Well, here she was left alone and, of course, expected to produce a good specimen of her work. The garret was piled from the floor to the key beams with fleeces of wool, and Duffy looked despairingly at them, and then sat herself down on the spinning wheel, and she cried out, "Curse the spinning and knitting! The devil may spin and knit for the squire for what I care." Scarcely had Duffy spoken these words than she heard a rustling noise behind some wool packs, and forth walked a queer-looking little man with a remarkable pair of eyes which seemed to send out flashes of light. There was something uncommonly knowing in the twist of his mouth, and the curved nose had an air of curious intelligence. He was dressed in black, and he moved towards Duffy with a jaunty air. I love it when they say that's such a had a jaunty air.
It had a certain jaunt to it.
Yeah, knocking something against the floor at every step he took. "Duffy, dear," said the little gentleman, "I'll do all the spinning and knitting for thee." "Thank'ee," said Duffy, quite astonished. "Duffy, dear, lady shall you be." "Why, thank'ee, your honour," smiled Duffy. "But, Duffy, dear, remember," said the little queer man, "remember that for all of this, at the end of 3 years, you must go with me, unless you can find out my name." Duffy was not the least bit frightened, nor did she hesitate long, but presently struck a bargain with her kind but unknowing friend, who told her she only had to wish, and her every wish would be fulfilled. And as for the spinning and knitting, she would find all she required under the black ram's fleece. Then he departed. How Duffy could not tell. Duffy sung in idleness and slept until it was time for her to make her appearance. So she wished for some yarns and looked under the black fleece, where she found them. Those were shown by the housekeeper to the squire, and both declared they'd never seen such beautiful yarns. The next day Duffy was to knit this yarn into stockings. Duffy idled as only professional idlers can idle, but in due time she produced a pair of stockings for the old squire. If the yarn was beautiful, the stockings were beyond all praise. They were as fine as silk and as strong as leather. Squire Lovell soon gave them a trial, and when he came home at night after hunting, he declared he would never wear anything other than Duffy's stockings. He had wandered all day through brack and briar, furze and brambles, and there was not a scratch on his legs, and he was as dry as a bone, There was no end to his praise of Duffy's stockings. Duffy had a rare time of it now. She could do what she pleased. She was dancing on the mill bed half the day with all the gossiping women who brought their grist to be ground. I love all these old words. To bring their grist.
I'll tell you what, it really throws me off with some of these words. Honestly, to be dyslexic and try and read more old-fashioned stuff is really, really difficult for me.
Yeah. In those good old times, the ladies of the parish would take their corn to mill, so that their grist was the corn, and surge the flour themselves. When a few of them met together, they would either tell stories or dance while the corn was grinding. Sometimes the dance would be on the mill bed and sometimes out on the green. On some occasions, one miller's fiddle would be in request. At others, the crowd was made to do the duty of the tambourine. So Duffy was always finding excuses to go to the mill, and many a round would she dance with the best people in the parish. Old Bet, the miller's wife, was a witch, and she found out who did Duffy's work for her. Duffy and old Bet were always the best of friends, and she never told anyone about Duffy's knitting friend, nor did she ever say a word about the stockings being unfinished. There was always a stitch down. On Sundays, the people went to Buryan Church from all parts to look at the squire's stockings. Come see my stockings.
See my stockings.
And the old squire would stop at the cross, proud enough to show them that he could hunt. Through brambles and furze in all sorts of weather, his old shanks were as sound as if bound up in leather. Duffy was now sought after by all the young men of the country.
Yeah, the whole country.
The whole country. And at last the squire, fearing to lose a pretty girl and one who was so useful to him, married her himself, and she became, according to the fashion of the time and place, Lady Lovell. But she was commonly known by her neighbours as the Duffy Lady.
There's one that sounds a lot better than the other. You could. So, what would you choose, Lady Lovell or the Duffy Lady?
The Duffy Lady.
I do remember when I was working with a dog once and doing some training, and this dog was literally only motivated by chicken, and so I would constantly come to the house with cooked chicken, right, as motivation, and her owner then referred to me as the Chicken Lady for ages, and I was like, great, that sounds lovely.
Yeah. The Chicken Lady.
Yeah.
Lady Lovell kept the devil hard at work. Stockings, all sorts of fine underclothes, bedding, and much ornamental work, the like of which was never seen, was produced at command and passed on as her own. Duffy passed a merry time of it, but somehow or other she was never happier when she was compelling to play the lady. She passed much more of her time with the old crone at the mill than in the drawing-room at Trove. The squire sported and drank and cared little about Duffy so long as she provided him with knitted garments. The 3 years were nearly at an end. Duffy had tried every plan to find out the devil's name, but had failed in all. She began to fear that she should have to go off with her queer friend, and Duffy became melancholy. Old Bet endeavoured to rouse her, persuading her that she could, from her long experience and many dealings with the imps of darkness, at the last moment put her in the way of escaping her doom. Duffy went day after day to her garret, and there each day was the devil, gibbing and jeering until she was almost mad. But there was another day. Bet, as good as her word, she promised to use her power. Duffy Lady was to bring down to the mill that very evening a jack of the strongest beer she had in the cellar. She was not to go to bed until the squire returned from hunting, no matter how late, and she was to make no remark in replying to anything the squire might tell her. The jack of beer was duly carried to the mill, and Duffy returned home very melancholy to wait up for the squire. No sooner had Lady Lovell left the mill than old Bet came out with the crowd and the blackjack in her hand. She shut the door and turned the water off the mill wheel, threw her red cloak about her, and away. She was seen by her neighbours going towards Boliette. A man saw the old woman trudging past the pipers and through the Dawn's Main into the downs. But there he lost sight of her, and no one could tell where old Bet had gone into at that time of night. Duffy waited long and anxious. By and by the dogs came home alone. They were covered with foam, their tongues were hanging out of their mouths, and all the servants said they must have met the devil's hounds. Duffy was seriously alarmed. Midnight came, but no squire. At last he arrived, but like a crazy, cracked-brained man, he kept singing, "Here's to the devil with his wooden pick and shovel." He was neither drunk nor frightened, but wild with some strange excitement. After a long time, Squire Lovell sat down and began, "My dear Duffy, you haven't smiled this long time, but now I'll tell 'ee something that will make 'ee laugh. If you'd seen what I'd seen tonight, ha 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 ha! Here's to the devil with his wooden pick and shovel." True to her orders, Duffy said not a word, but allowed the squire to ramble on as he pleased. At length he told her the following story of his adventures, with interruptions which have not been retained, and with numerous coarse expressions which are best forgotten. This is the squire's story of the meeting of the witches in the fug hole.
I think it's Fugi or Fu.
Is it? Fuggo hole? I don't know.
Hang on 1 second.
That's hilarious.
It's Fugu.
It's Fugu.
It's Fugu hole.
I'll read that again then. This is the squire's story of the meeting of the witches in the Fugu hole. Duffy dear, I left home at break of day this morning. I hunted on the moors from Trove to Dravanda, and never started a hare in the livelong day. I determined to hunt all night, that I'd have a brace to bring home. So at nightfall I went down Lamorna Bottoms, then up Bren Dowses, and as we passed the Dawson Main, I started a hare, as fine a hare as ever was seen. The dogs, they couldn't catch her at all. As fine a chase as ever was seen, until she took into the Fugu hole. I went with the dogs after her, and I followed the owls and bats flying round my head. On we went through water and mud, and mile or more. I'm quite certain I didn't know the place was so long before. At last we came to a broad pool of water, and when the dogs lost the scent and ran back past me, howling and jowling, terrified almost to death. A little further on, I turned round a corner and I saw a glimmering fire on the other side of the water, and there were St. Leven witches in scores. Some were riding on ragwort, some on brooms, some were floating on their three-legged stools, and some who had been milking the little good cows in Wales had come back astride of the largest leeks they could find. Among the rest, there was our Bet of the Mill with her crowd in her hand and my own blackjack slung across her shoulders. In a short time the witches gathered round the fire and blowed it up after a strange fashion. till it burned up into a brilliant blue flame. Then I saw amongst the rest a queer little man in black, with a long forked tail, and his head held in the air, and he twirled around. Bet struck a crowd as soon as he appeared, and beat up the tune. Here's to a devil with his wooden pick and shovel, digging tin by the bushel with his tail cocked up. Then the queer little devil and all danced like the wind, and went faster and faster, making such a clatter as if they had each foot a pewter platter. Every time the man in black came round by old Bet, he took a good pull from my own blackjack, till at last, as if he'd been drinking my best beer, he seemed to have lost his head, when he jumped up and down, turned round, and roaring with laughter, he sang, "Duffy, my lady, you'll never know what, that my name is Terry Top, Terry Top Top." And then the squire sung those lines. He stopped suddenly, thinking that Duffy was going to die. She turned pale and red, and pale again. However, Duffy said nothing, and the squire proceeded. After the dance, all the witches made a ring round the fire, and again blew it up until the blue flames reached the top of the zorn. Then the devil danced through and through the fire, and springing ever and anon amongst the witches, he kicked 'em soundly, and last I was shaking with laughter at the fun. I shouted, "Go it, old Nick!" and lo, the lights went out, and I had to fly with all my speed, for every one of the witches was after me. I scampered home somehow, and here I am. Why don't you laugh, Duffy? Duffy did laugh, and laugh right heartily now. And when tired of their fun, the squire and the lady went to bed. The 3 years was up within the hour. Duffy had willed for an abundant supply of knitting things, and filled every chest in the house. She was in the best chamber trying to cram some more stockings into the big chest, when the queer little man in black appeared before her. "Well, Duffy Ray, dear," he said, "I have been to my word, and served you truly for 3 years, as we agreed. So now I hope you will go with me, and make no objection." He bowed very obscurely. Very obscurely?
Obsequiously. I have no idea.
Okay.
You're asking the wrong person.
He bowed very deeply, almost to the ground,
There you go.
and regarded Lady Duffy, or Duffy Lady, with a very offensive leer. "I fear," smiled Duffy, "that your country is rather warm, and might spoil my fair complexion." "It is not so hot as some people say, Duffy," was his reply. "But come along, I kept my word, and of course a lady of your standing will keep your word also. Can you tell me my name?" Duffy curtsied, and smiling said, "You have behaved like a true gentleman, yet I wouldn't like to go so far." The devil frowned and approached, as he would lay forcible hands upon her. "Maybe your name is Lucifer." He stamped his foot and grinned horribly. "Lucifer? Lucifer? He's no other than a servant to me in my own country." Suddenly calming again, he said quietly, "Lucifer, I would scarcely be seen speaking to him at court. But come along. When I spin for ladies, I expect honourable treatment at their hands. Ye 2 guesses more. But they're of little use. My name is not generally known on earth." "Perhaps," smiled Duffy again. My lord's name is Beelzebub. How he grinned, and his side shook with convulsive joy. Beelzebub, says he. Why, he's a little better than the other. A common devil, he. I believe he's some sort of cousin, a Cornish cousin, you know. I hope your honour, curtsied Duffy, will not take offence. Impute my mistake to ignorance. Our little demon was rampant with joy. He danced around Duffy with delight and was seeing that she hesitated, about to seize her somewhat roughly. Stop! Stop! Shouted Duffy. Perhaps you will be honest enough to admit that your name is Terry Top. The gentleman in black looked at Duffy, and she steadily looked him in the face. Terry Top, deny it if you dare, says she. A gentleman never denies his name, replied Terry Top, drawing himself up with much dignity. I did not expect to be beaten by a young minx like you, Duffy, but the pleasure of your company is merely postponed. With this, Terry Top departed in fire and smoke, and all the devil's knitting suddenly turned to ashes. Squire Lovell was out hunting away far on the moors. The day was cold and the wind piercing. Suddenly the stockings dropped from his legs and the home spun from his back, so that he came home with nothing on but his shirt and his shoes, almost dead with cold. All this was attributed by the squire to the influence of old Bet, who he thought had punished him for pursuing her with his dogs when she had assumed the form of a hare. The story, as told by the drolls, now rambles on. Duffy cannot furnish stockings. The squire is very wroth. There are many quarrels, mutual recriminations, and Duffy's old sweetheart is called in to beat the squire, and eventually peace is procured by a stratagem of old Bet's, which would rather shock the senses of propriety in these our days. Ah!
Well, I'm very glad that you took over there, because I would have never gotten through that as well as you did. Oh, my life, honestly.
Oh, what a story! That is so funny. So funny.
I just love the fact that, you know, the Terry Top character, or Rumpelstiltskin, or whatever character
Yeah.
it is, I like that it's sort of like twisted into this being this sort of real devil character, and yet he's actually like, he gave you a way out. Like, you know, he's kind of helpful,
Yeah.
but he kind of wants something a little bit too big at the end.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, it's a bit much to ask, I think.
Yeah.
And then how do we get out of it? And yeah, so I liked the extra bit about the king, or the lord, you know, when all his clothes fall off, and
Yeah.
it's just like,
Yeah,
oh well,
all
that's
this.
that gone then. Everything being
Oh,
reversed,
dear.
and yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
I did come up with some questions. I don't know how good they are, but I've got quite a few, but we needn't do all of them because we've already gone over an hour.
It would have been
But
longer if I'd have been reading it, I can tell you. Not doing very well today.
But things like who actually holds the power in this story at different points, and how does it shift?
Mm. And then it's interesting because at the end of that second version, old Bet's blamed for all of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a witch up the way.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, who
and it's all
turned
her
into a
fault.
hare. Yeah, it must be all her fault. It's all her fault that all the stockings and everything have all gone as well. It was
Yeah.
all her fault.
I feel like Duffy got off pretty light, really.
Duffy did get off light, but she was a bit worried at one point, not
Yes, I
knowing,
think so. Yeah.
and I think she owes Betts a
There's definitely a Bet's debt.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh dear. Yeah, why does Rumpelstiltskin or Terry Top insist on a bargain rather than simply taking what he wants?
It's a good point. And I think in the first one, it was very much the fact that she didn't have anything to pay him with. So he came up
Yeah,
with something, i.e. their first son or
yeah.
first child, whatever it was. And then in the second one, he didn't seem to ask for any other option. It was just, that's it, you have to come with me at the end.
Yeah, also, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, after 3 years, you have to come
So
with me, or
she
you.
didn't have any other choice, did she?
Not really, no.
But he still gave her 3 years of
Of trying to figure out his name.
yeah, and actually happiness in a
Yeah,
way because
yeah,
she could idle the day away doing almost nothing and get what she needed in the evening. She ended up
yeah,
marrying and becoming Lady Lovell
yeah.
or Duffy Lady Duffy or Duffy
Big
Lady.
Duffy lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
So I
dear.
feel like she actually got off pretty light, really.
Yeah. Um, what else have we got here? It's interesting. Is Rumpelstiltskin the villain or simply the only character being honest about the cost of magic?
Arguably, true. I mean, there is that whole thing over, you know, I just feel like could the women in this story could not they just not have lived happily on their own?
Yeah.
Did they need like the king or the lord or the upper class person to come and
Mm,
save them and marry them, because obviously they're useless otherwise, apparently.
yeah.
Although in this one, I think he married her because she was becoming very popular with everybody else, and he
Well, that's
wanted to make
right.
sure to
Yeah.
keep her.
Yeah. And
So
he
that,
wanted to keep having the stockings made
yeah,
for
he
himself, didn't
wanted his
he?
stuff, and that keeping her meant keeping the stuff that she was producing. So yeah, I feel like there's a villain esque element to that as well. You know,
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and I want our listeners to please send us in your ideas on YouTube. You can put it in the comments. Otherwise, you can just contact us with our email address, which is given at the end. And we'd just love to hear your comments on this to see whether or not you've got any thoughts. But this question is interesting, and probably this is what we'll finish on. Um, what there's sort of two really that are more modern. What are the modern equivalents of secret names? Things like diagnosis,
which we talked about.
of actually knowing that you have something. So many people don't get diagnosed with things like ADHD and dyslexia and things like that. So have struggled all their life, and it's not until later in life when they actually get a proper diagnosis and they're like, ah.
Yeah, that fits and that makes sense. And again, somebody else has experienced this, and I'm not on
That's
my
right.
own, and it's got a
Yeah,
name.
it's got a
Yeah,
name, and that's it. And suddenly there's a reason why I do this or I
yeah,
feel this or yeah.
yeah,
Um, and again, labels, online identities. That's an interesting one because we
yeah.
can
When you can
sometimes
create your own name.
yeah,
Mm,
uh, yeah, and your own identity. Yeah, and that's why you never know who you're speaking to.
absolutely. If somebody makes
Mm.
up their own name, they can tell you whatever they want, can't they?
Naming something help us. And when does it strip it of its magic or dignity? I think now just naming something, like naming a lie, I think that strips it of
Yeah, I see what you mean. It strips it of its power.
its power. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially if you don't just name it, but you've got facts to prove
yes.
that
And you
it
officially call it out and debunk it. And yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
and you can then actively dismiss it
Yeah.
as bad information.
Yeah. Or you can actively do something about it to make sure people know the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm saying no more on the matter. It
that's
is
it.
quite
It's quite
in the
poignant at the
news
moment.
at the
Yeah,
moment. In fact, not just one item, there's quite a few items that would fit that bill of
absolutely.
ensuring that you have the facts and
Yeah,
you know whether something is a lie or is real.
yeah.
I will
Always
say
double
no
check.
more.
Always
And
double check.
I think we finish on that actually.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, folks, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. As much as I've fallen over my words like crazy today, I've not done very well. I'm not very well. Leave me alone. Oh dear. But with that being said, keep your minds open and your lamps lit, and we will see you again next time at the Freakin Shack.
And we will see you next time in the Shack After Dark.
After dark, yeah.
Because that is the episode that's coming next week. A general chit chat. You can send in your ideas if you've got anything you want us to talk about or any questions you want to ask us. Please email them to us or pop them in
we
the
can
comments.
answer them. We can then answer them in our Shack After Dark episodes, and it gives us something else to talk about.
Would be lovely. So, other than that, we're off. Bye, everyone.
See you again next time.
Bye.